Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Another amazing day, getting to showcase and shine a spotlight on another incredible person that I've had the privilege of getting to meet and know. And I got to tell you, when you meet somebody and at random places right after a huge event, and you meet somebody and you think, first of all, there's no way they're old enough to have 4 children. And then you get to know them more and you realize they're wearing so many hats and you think, this woman is so poised, so full of grace. Like, how does she do all this? So I have to brag on you, Jessica, because the first moment I met you in the hallway after the book signing and then getting to know you, I'm like, you'd never know all the things you do. And I can't wait to share this with the world. So world, meet Jessica Kilcullen. And I'd like to say that with the Irish accent. Did I do that or not?
Very well. Kilcullen, yes.
Oh, I love it. Well, Jessica, thanks, my dear, for being here. And I'm not kidding. It's like you wear and do so many hats, but I'd love to just immediately go to, this is the thing that blows my mind. And I want you to brag about this, but you literally own vineyards. And you are in the heart of the wine country, and that has a lot to do, having been the guru in the Silicon Valley and done amazing things around the world. Your passion now is really around wine, but bringing that into a whole new level of global innovation. But tell us about your passion with wine. I'd like to start there.
So, grew up here and grew up around it and really didn't realize the magic of all of it until I was away from it. So we moved back and took over my grandparents' estate. The home that my dad built for them, is now where I'm raising our boys. And just a really incredible community of people who care about the land. We're poised to be the first wine growing region in the world that will be 100% sustainable. And that isn't just sort of what some people would think is, sustainable in terms of product. This is really the triple bottom line of people, product, and planet. And so the way that we treat our immigrant workers with housing and affordable healthcare to, how we're using water and our farming practices and just so many different components of that that really matter. And wine is one of those rare and amazing things that, some people glamorize and but it brings people together, right? So there is a lot of magic that can happen over a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen, this, I think for a while the industry was a little bit afraid and scared of the craft brew industry. And, oh no, is that going to, cut off a chunk of our market share? But I think wine is just something that over time, since the dawn of time, right? I mean, has brought people together and, from, church practices to, everywhere else. It's just something that's, it's really beautiful and it's a great community to be in. And, we're excited about it. So we're farmers. We have Chardonnay, and I just planted some Pinot Noir because I love to drink Pinot, so I might as well plant it.
Oh, and I love that because those are our favorites. That's why we met at the Women of the Vine event that was almost 2 years ago, the first ever, bringing all the women in the winemaking industry together. Yes. And to me, I love it how you just say we're farmers. And I don't think many people, we really truly enjoy wine, but I think for my husband and I, we've fallen in love with the art and the science of it. And when you get to meet the people growing the vineyards like yourselves and the winemakers, it's a whole nother world of appreciation. So you don't just, when you drink it, there's a story. And you can actually, that whole saying about you can smell the rocks, you can smell the soil, and that's what I think is fascinating. But what's great about you, and now I'm going to have to laugh because I'm sorry, Jessica, but I'll never forget this. After that event and you stood in line for the book signing, you walked up, you handed me your card, and we were talking about women of faith and all that, but you go, oh, I'm married to the dummy. And
I married the head dummy.
I will never forget that. Like to this day, I was telling my husband last night, I go, I'll still never forget that. And I'm like, what? You go, yeah. The guy that wrote all the books about the dummy books. And I was just,
Yeah, that's our joke, ongoing, right? Because he actually is quite a dummy about some things. And that's why he started it and said, we need to give people a really easy way to figure things out in life, right? So that whole series really exploded, everything you can think of, how to learn it, how to figure it out, how to wrap your arms around it in a really easy and engaging way.
Well, what's funny is how many of those are there now from the first one to what exists now?
It's a global phenomenon, really.
Yeah. But and I'll never forget that. Like who stands there and goes, I'm married to the dummy. I mean, that was like, and then when I got to meet him that night, at the big event, I was like, oh, I got to get to meet the dummy. But with all of that said, what I'd love to do is you've done something really amazing that is getting ready to launch. And I want to share this with all the listeners here in a moment, because it's kind of a first ever summit that you're doing. But before we go there, I want to know more about Jessica and, growing up maybe I know there's always the story behind the story. So as much as you're doing and who you are, was there a pivotal time in your life that maybe goes back to childhood or when maybe it was really, strong adversity? I don't know what you've been through, but was there that pivotal moment that you say, I can go back to that and that gave me the courage, the strength, whatever that is that keeps you going and who you are today? What would that be?
I don't know if there is one moment. I would say that I was, this is really, right, a beautiful corner of the world, but it's a rural country of the world, part of the world. And so growing up here in Sonoma County, it wasn't until I traveled a lot and I had that experience and with my grandparents. So my grandmother and grandfather owned a really successful travel agency. And so once a year, they would take us to different places in the world. And when I was a young girl, we went to Africa on a safari. And that just completely cracked my mind and head and soul open to a global perspective, right? So when you're a little girl growing up in, one corner of the world, and then you see another part of the world, and outside of Nairobi, where they had, just the most poverty-stricken neighborhood, I'd never seen anything like that before, so it really gave me that hope and that drive, really, right? To say, I have nothing to complain about. I am so grateful, and I'm going to go do things to make other people's lives better, my life better. And, it just puts things in perspective in a different way. And so that really imprinted in my childhood mind. And I think it's been one of those things that has continued to spur me forward and say, I can do it. I can do anything. I am not that child living in that, awful, godforsaken neighborhood that's struggling day to day. Like I have so many things at my fingertips to make life amazing.
Well, and I think you said something earlier when we were just catching up, but it just sums up what that experience is. You called it gratitude wash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Driving along in that van and looking out and just, it's just a wave of gratitude where you say, I am so grateful for everything I have, all the opportunities, and then it really sort of imprints that, what can I do to help? What can I do? I think that was just, as a childhood, quick memory, but it left a lasting impact.
Oh, definitely. And not that everybody's had those kind of opportunities, but I do think the lesson learned, which I love that you just shared, is that I think sometimes, and it's as parents, right? We both, have raising boys and, as parents out there and people listening, what opportunities are we giving our children, especially if we live in a pretty safe little bubble, right? Mm-hmm. To see the world and be out of that bubble, because it does look at the difference that made for you. It changed who you were that day. And it gave you a spark of, I want to give back. I'm going to do something that's going to be bigger and better. And I mean, I just think that that's a gift we can give our children or our loved ones or anybody or ourselves, right? Let's get out of self. I always say the greatest gift you can give yourself to get out of a bad day is to get out of self.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that takes us to an interesting nugget I learned about you earlier, which I loved. And I was like, ooh, I didn't know about this. It's almost that. So let's go back to where you were raised, and that this has a lot to do with this mission you're on now and the summit you're launching. But take us back to that kind of that elite society that you're kind of trying to shake things up a bit that I didn't even know existed in the wine industry.
Yeah, it's interesting. So here in Sonoma County, you have, the rolling hills, the ocean, the redwood trees. And so in a very secluded redwood grove, some of the old growth redwoods, exists the Bohemian Grove. So it was a men's club in San Francisco, and this was sort of their outpost to gather. And it's written in history books. I'll never forget being in like sixth grade, social studies class and actually reading about it. And I'm going, that's in my backyard. So ex-presidents, captains of industry fly in, clog our little, we call it the Snoopy airport, because this is where Charles Schultz, the creator of the Snoopy's whole empire, raised his children and did a lot of his work here in Sonoma County. So I had my own company in Silicon Valley. I was, sort of at the top of my game, if you will, and my grandfather would fly his plane down to Silicon Valley, pick me up for the weekends. And one of those weekends happened to be the Bohemian Grove. And, he was saying, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing great. I should introduce you to so-and-so and so-and-so. And then he goes, oh, and I said, well, I can't go. It's male only. And so, Vanity Fair tries to break in every year because it's such a who's who.
Oh, I love that.
And so this is really what we're launching and what I'm creating is called Harvest Summit. Yep. And it's men and women leaders outstanding in their field gathering in Sonoma County. So really feel like it's time. And, it's time for Sonoma County to have a different offering other than the Bohemian Grove that's exclusive. And we really want to push innovation forward. We work with so many different industries that we really feel that people have to come together from different perspectives to learn from each other and to spark ideas and deals and push things forward, from everything, how what we eat to so we're having dialogues on the future of food. We're talking about, cognitive computing. We're talking about the Internet of Things. There's so much ahead of us as a society, but also these executives who are challenged day to day to, lead their companies and drive innovation, but also they're human beings and they have to optimize the way that they live and work and balance family and all those other pressures. And we really want to meet them where they are in those discussions.
Well, and what I loved is the analogy, and I can't articulate it the way you did earlier to me, but you brought the analogy of, when you think about it, you take Hollywood producers, Silicon Valley execs, you put all these different people, wine experts, people in the wine industry, they all have something in common, right? You said there was something about the brand of how do we have these conversations because we all have something similar. And I think that to me was the spark, Jessica, of wow, I never thought about it, right? Now that is innovation at its best. And it's cross-functionally. We talk about cross-functional in organizations, but this is in a global scale of industry cross-functional, right?
Yeah, there's so much that, so we're bringing technology, media, entertainment, agriculture, food and wine leaders, and also policy leaders, and saying the connective tissue between all of those is innovation, right? How do you really seek out new opportunities and look at your industry or your product or your, employee base in a different way that can change the game for you. And that, in the media and entertainment world, right, they're dealing with talent, and that's something that they're creating new direct to fan engagement, right? So in the talent world, artists have tens of millions of followers. and direct to fan engagement. Well, the same could be, applied and thought, and there's probably a lot of lessons learned for even big brands in technology. How do they create tens of millions of followers and create a direct to fan or consumer relationship is the same way that a wine industry with a bottle of wine and that engagement, and that there's a tremendous value in getting outside of your own industry and having an aha moment and learning, oh, wow, that's how they approach it in their industry. I never thought about that. I could apply that to my industry. And that you have to spark those unexpected conversations and pairings of perspectives.
I just think this is just brilliant. And I have to say, as I'm listening to you, I'm sitting here picturing this. This is almost like, and I've been a part of these over the years, but when you bring together a mastermind group of people, all from different, but to do exactly this, but this is going to be at a much larger scale. But we get so caught up in the way we think it is in our industry that we don't even think out of the box. Because we haven't even entertained it. And it takes that spark or somebody going, well, have you tried this? Or what about doing it this? And then before you know it, you're like, never thought about it. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I just think you're onto something. And I love that you and your husband are so passionate about, what I love too is that you both come from such a place of service. You're doing and making global impact in a lot of ways. You're passionate about what you're doing, but even getting to spend a little time with the both of you, I realize, there's a very common denominator here, Jessica, that I want the world to know is that you come from a place of service. And I know your husband's involved with a whole new network that's getting ready to launch, the Faith Network. And so we want to give plugs to that. But I also want you to know that it just shows. And when I think about you as this amazing, brilliant, beautiful woman, at the end of the day, what are you most grateful for and what are you most passionate about? So if you were to share that with the listeners, what wisdom would you share in that context?
I think I am most grateful for the opportunity, right? So we live in a place and a country that has opportunity, right? And that it's up to me to create and do whatever I want, right? And that it all comes down to that drive within that. And then really finding, and I'm so grateful for the people that support that. And it's, and that onus is on me too, right? Like picking those people to surround yourself with, they're going to lift you up, encourage you, and that's a two-way street, right? So, the whole adage of, you plant the seed, but then you have to water it, right? So I think that's something that on a global scale, we need more of, right? Like just being kind and supporting other people. And you hear about it, right? With the whole lean in movement with women, that we all need to step up and be more supportive of each other as women, but also that we need the support of men and the understanding and support to lift us up as well. And I think, what I'm most passionate about is giving back and having an impact, right? So literally it's one of those things that in life, when we've had tragedy and we've had very dear friends of ours pass away suddenly, or, tragic accidents. I've had an uncle who was just extremely amazing, successful, athletic. He's a paraplegic. He had a ski accident and it shattered his life. And, I saw firsthand the effects of everyone in our family and on that and that. So being grateful and making an impact on how we can all help each other in this world, how we can all, give back in terms of the people in your family, to the people in your backyard, to the community you live in, to a global scale, right? And I think some people, get a little overwhelmed with that, like, oh my God, how am I going to go change the world?
Yeah, true.
And I think, for us, we really believe and are passionate about, make an impact in your own circle sphere first, and then let that, it's like when you throw the rock in the pond, right? That ripples out. Yep. It'll begin to ripple out and more opportunity will open up to you. And so that we do that within our family. We have a really large family, and then to our own community. And then now all of a sudden we're at that more, global conversation with some different organizations and people. So
Oh, well, and when you think about, you're right. I think people get overwhelmed. I mean, let's be honest. There's people that are listening that we want to give back, but sometimes we just don't know how, and we're not in a position to be able to do it in such a global way. But getting it back to the granular, it's as simple as the little things we're doing every day. And, as I was listening to you, it's one of my most favorite, cherished quotes. And to me, it just exemplifies kind of what you just said, Jessica, and that is, give without remembering, receive without forgetting. Mm-hmm. And I heard that as a young person, and that has been a part of my life, and it's been in my heart forever. And I think when we stop and think like that, wow, does it change how we show up in the world? And sometimes it changes even how we make decisions daily. So, I have to, I'm just curious because this is coming to me right now. We have no scripts. Everything's very organic and authentic. But I remember, and you were with me when I spoke at the Women of the Vine, but I talked about the 3 pillars of really to get power in your brand. And the third one was courage, to stand up for what you stand for and to have boundaries and rules. Knowing how much you do and knowing how many hats you wear, do you have rules for yourself, Jessica? Have you found any specific boundaries you've put into place just to help you manage your world and your life? Maybe it's a secret tip you can share with everybody that's worked.
I think right now, when everybody finds a secret, please let me know. I think you really have to optimize your life for what works for you, right? So it's the constraints of time, right? There is not enough time to really do everything that we want to do. We are at a place where a lot of people, sort of want some of our time. And I really have to make the choices where I know at the end of the day, I say, okay, I did what mattered, or, I spent the time with the right person. Right. So I've had to really kind of almost, when you spring cleaning, you go through your closet, you're like, I haven't worn that, shirt in a year. It's out of here. There are certain people in my life I've had to do that with and say, okay, I'm not, going to get anything, and I'm not going to be able to give anything to that relationship. And so really choosing, the people and the projects that, yield the best, two-way street, I think is something that, my husband and I have really worked to make sure. And that at the end of the day, we have 3 young boys and one who's out of the nest and launched, and being present and giving to them. And from a day-to-day level, it's, technology so ever present in our lives. Yeah. Technology is not allowed at the table for dinner. And we every night try to each go around the table and say our rose and thorns. So what's the best thing that happened to you today? And what's the worst thing that happened to you today? And that's a meaningful conversation. And I think that that's something that's so important in life that we always try to have too, is that, and part of that is what's driving this passion to have this summit, right? It's that, people need to have conversations. There is still such a need to have face-to-face communication and connection in an increasingly digital world. You've got kids walking around doing the Pokemon Go and, the AR and VR and all these immersive experiences that there's still a place and a tremendous value in being present in this world and looking someone in the eye and having conversations.
Oh, you know what? I am literally in awe. I love the rose and thorns. Do you realize you are embedding in those children such a wonderful legacy, and that will go on with them when they become adults and have their own families. And you know what I'm thinking, Jessica? This is the perfect way to wrap this up, because talk about a celebration of you. This is all about celebrating people like yourself that are doing extraordinary things out there. And I think everybody has an amazing story. But I also want people as a leader, if you're listening to this and you are, whether you're CEO of your own company or you're a leader in an organization, you're an individual contributor, taking to heart rose and thorns is at home as much as professional. I mean, why not start having those conversations with your teams?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just thinking, how amazing could that be? So that's what we're going to tag this. It's called Rose and Thorns, Jessica, all because of you.
Love it. Hashtag Rose and Thorns.
Hashtag Rose and Thorns. Let's go, team. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being with me. And I can't wait to see you hopefully this fall.
Yes.
And for anybody that would like to know more, get in touch with you, learn more, how best would you like them to reach out to you?
harvestsummit.com. Check it out. And then, follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all that goodness. But, and I have, my personal handle, as well. It's, email is jesskilcullen@gmail.com. I'm happy to have conversations with like-minded individuals. And, we're really passionate about, sparking a community. So
love it. Love it. And if anybody, I always let people know too, if they they reach out to us, my team, we can always forward it on to you.
Yes.
So, thank you, my friend. Enjoy the beautiful day. Enjoy the wine country. Give your amazing husband a big hug. And, thank you for being with me.
Absolutely. And cheers, right? We have to say that.
Cheers. We could cling, but it's a little early right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.